I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like the sequels. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back again with another video, and this is going to be episode 18 of the Starkiller base mock build series. This week was an interesting one, and I feel like it's really the first time in my career of building mocks here on YouTube that I actually probably made more negative progress than positive progress, and I'll really get into that later in the video. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is the live stream. So very special thanks to this week's Livestream Donor. Shout out to, well, ZandieBoi, the lone donor for this week. Really appreciate it, man. It meant a lot, actually. So if you guys aren't checking out the live streams, like I always say, go ahead and do it. It's a great time for you to not only see the mock early, but to also just hang around with some boyos and really just have a great old time. But in terms of the mock, you can see behind me that the two walls that were once there are no longer there. I had to tear down basically half of them in order to build something that I didn't build before, basically a big detail that I omitted. But I'll talk about that as I show you guys my progress through the week. So without further ado, let's jump right into the mock. All right, so the first order of business here on this week of Starkiller is actually going to be something pretty cool. I got another shipment in from OK Brickworks. He's the one who did the big sticker on those three banners over there, and he sent me in a bunch of these smaller ones that are going to go on the Starkiller base flags. So I'm about to be working on that on my live stream here on YouTube. And there's also another order of business that is kind of disappointing, but something that I think in the long run will make this mock a lot better. So the second half of this stream is going to be me basically tearing these walls down to about the halfway point, and it's going to be like that on this side as well as the other side. If you ask why are you doing this, Rich Boy J? Why are you making negative progress? It's simply because I overlooked a pretty big detail on the walls here. I was doing some video searching to find out some reference material for the turrets that are going to be here, and I found this like Star Wars Battlefront 2 like outside the map video where people basically are able to access parts of the map you're not supposed to access, and it really just gives you a good look at the map from a bigger perspective outside of just like your third person or first person view from your character. And I noticed that there's basically a giant protrusion that comes out here at the top of the wall, and it's pretty elaborate too, and I felt it's something that I should implement. Like I kind of went back and forth and I was like, maybe I'll just leave it. People aren't seriously going to notice it. But I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. The first one is I really do feel like it'll actually add a lot of detail to these walls. Even when I finished them, I felt these walls kind of look bare. I think having the turret there will definitely, I guess, kind of make it look a little bit more interesting in this area. But I really think having that detail coming out from here will actually look really nice. And two, really for my own personal reasons, like this is a mock that I've obviously put a lot of time into, and I don't want to look back on this with any regrets, oh, I should have done this or I should have implemented that. Like this is obviously a really large scale, long-term project, and I want to make sure I have everything as correct as possible. And at this point, it's not the biggest thing in the world to take down these bricks. It's just a bunch of 2x4 stacked up. It's not super complicated, and I haven't done a ton of progress with like even the details in here. So that's what I'm going to be doing. It'll make the wall look a lot better, and it'll just make me feel a bit happier. So that's what I'm going to be doing on the stream right now. I'll catch up with you guys right after the stream. All right, and for another update from the stream, you can see that the stickers have finally been applied to the banners. Once again, shout out to OK Brickworks. He sent me these over, and I could not be any happier with them. They look incredible. This is exactly what I wanted for these banners, and now I don't have to think about it, which is always a nice thing when something that you're not really sure how you're going to implement, you get figured out, and now it's kind of put in the past. You can move on to bigger and better, more difficult things. He also sent me a bunch more of these. I bought like more than enough for the flags that I have, so my plan is, I don't know, maybe spruce up the rest of the mock with a bunch of these. I imagine the first ordered banner will be pretty persistent in the actual base, so I figured it'd be very useful to have a bunch more of these. So I'm sure those will come in handy once we get to the actual interior of the base. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to that this week, especially considering I destroyed such a big portion of the mock, but it'll come very soon, very soon. All right, and here's a look at what I've constructed. It's gonna be kind of hard to grab this thing with one hand, but I'm gonna try my best. So right now it's actually sitting up, and you can see here we got ourselves that little, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's just a protrusion that comes kind of out of the wall right there. And the goal is to really have it mounted, I guess, somewhat kind of in the middle of this. That's why I purposely made it this way rather than just building it into the wall, because I wanted to ensure that because this thing is modular, I wanted to preserve that modularity, and I knew that this big monstrosity was going to end up crossing that line right there, which is basically where the two base plates separate. So I figured, why not just do something like this? And this was quite the task to figure out. Initially, on the underside right here, my goal was actually to just use plates with some wedge plates to make it kind of smooth right there, have it kind of at an angle to fill that gap. And I really just wasn't finding the angles I liked. So that's kind of why I settled with these 1x2 and 1x so that's kind of why I ended up settling with these slope bricks. And for the most part, I'm actually pretty happy with them. It's a pretty, I think, interesting technique here. There's actually a better look at the inside of it. You can see that the middle of it is actually sitting up, and then the sides are snot connected, and this thing's really heavy, which is why I'm kind of struggling to show it off to you guys. But for the most part, it ended up working out pretty well. The thing I like the most about this is it's going to add a lot of detail to this wall section. Like I said earlier, the wall is looking honestly pretty bare, but I think this adds a lot more detail and just makes the sides of the actual building here look a lot more interesting. One of the other things that was difficult to figure out about this was really how I was going to get all of this to kind of come together, because for one, it's so heavy and there's these weird shapes to it. It was kind of a task to just make sure that this thing was going to be sturdy enough because it's so big. But what I ended up basically doing was I made this middle section, and you can see those are snot bricks. So there's studs on the sides of those on either side that allow these two side sections to connect. And through the magic of Lego, the math ended up working out to where I had these walls coming up. They meet perfectly in the middle, which I guess doesn't sound super interesting or impressive, but it could have easily been the case that whenever I built this way and built this way from either side, they did not end up lining up perfectly. Like there could have been a gap that was not like a Lego measurement, like something outside of a stud. So the fact that this actually did work out pretty perfectly is very nice, and I thank the Lego gods for being in my favor in this circumstance. The other thing is this big sloped section on the bottom. This is something I'm going to have to fill up with tiles. I didn't do it because I was kind of considering adding some like white details for snow or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of why that's still exposed with studs. And I'm also going to add some of those like icicle pieces on the front of this thing to show some ice and snow hanging from it, make it look really nice and detailed. But for the most part, it took me quite some time to really figure out how this thing was going to come together, but ended up actually working out pretty well. So if I can actually maybe get a better grip, I can show you. This is kind of what you're going to be expecting for this thing to look like once it's actually mounted on this. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to mount it this week. I've really run out of time. I need to get this update put on YouTube pretty soon. But this is a good starting point. The fact that I have this figured out means I don't really have to think for the other side. I just have to rebuild this, which honestly is a lot easier said than done because that thing took quite a while to build. But like I said, I don't have to think about it. I just got to build it. So it's always nice when you can get to that point. So let's actually go ahead and take a break from the built section of the MOC, and let's lastly take a look at the turret that I've been working on in LDD. I figured before I showed you guys the actual turret, I'd show you a photo of it from Battlefront 2. This is the best photo I could find that's up close and just gives you a real good idea of the general shaping of the turret that's going to be on Starkiller base. You can see that the top part of it is very reminiscent of the Death Star's turbo laser. Instead it has three, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's three of those like lasers on it rather than two of them. So that's, I guess, kind of cool that they're somewhat consistent with that. Then the bottom section is just pretty totally different than what we saw in the original Death Star and with those turbo lasers. So here is what I've come up with in Lego. You can see I'm probably like 40% done. I've gotten basically like the three main sides of this top part of the turret done. I just have to do the side with the guns on it, and then I guess make up something for the top of it, because I don't think I'm ever going to get any reference material for that. But for the most part, this has been honestly kind of a pain. Like finding photos and reference material for this, especially in Battlefront, has been really, really annoying. I kind of went through this when I was building Crate the first time. Basically, what you have to do is For one, you can't like just load up the game and then just kind of waltz straight up to this thing, right? Like you can only access the part of the map on Starkiller Base where this turret is if you're playing online, which creates a new set of problems. The first one being you can't choose what maps you're deciding to play on online, so you really just have to get lucky and end up on Starkiller Base. Secondly, you have to, be able to hang around long enough to like snap a photo or whatever without getting shot, because there's other people like actually trying to play a game that aren't looking for reference material for their Lego project. So I decided to not do that at all, just forego that completely this time around. What I ended up doing mostly was just looking at YouTube videos, trying to pause and get screenshots. And I actually want to shout out to the Trending Brick. He actually made quite a bit of an effort to actually play the game and to get me some photos of this thing, but it took him like 20 minutes and he still couldn't end up on Starkiller Base. So it just really brought back bad memories from when I was building Crate, because on Crate it was like a new map, so there wasn't a ton of like videos and stuff on it yet, and I needed like very specific shots of like the bottom of the ATM6, and it was just a mess. And like I spent so many hours just trying to get Crate on multiplayer and also trying to like get enough photos without getting shot at and dying. But anyways, I ended up getting like actually a good amount of reference material from a user named Gooby. There's some numbers after that. I don't remember what the numbers are, but basically he sent me, I guess whoever designed the level on Battlefront 2 posted a bunch of like just really nice photos of Starkiller Base. And I was able to use a lot of those to kind of get my reference material for this. But that's enough talk about reference material. I'm actually pretty happy with the overall design for this. One of the things you'll probably notice is that the shape of the turret is basically like three squares stacked on top of each other. I ultimately decided to go with that approach because the angles that the sides of this are supposed to be representing are just so subtle and so slight, and I really couldn't represent that using Lego wedge plates, so I opted instead to go for this design, and I feel like ultimately it'll look much more accurate. So this will really have to be something I see in person, but as of now, I'm actually pretty happy with just the general shaping of the the top part of the turbo laser. As for the bottom part, the nice thing about it is the design is symmetrical. I can't say that for the top part. For the top part, I had to get photos of both sides, and you can see they're actually quite different. But for the bottom, I just have to design one side and then mirror it and put it on the other side. So that halves the amount of work I would have to do for that, which is really nice. But I started with this section right here. It's nothing special, just some details on the side of it. But to give you guys a closer look at the details on the top of the turbo laser, you can see here a lot of it just looks really random, like in Battlefront. Like there's no method to the madness. It seems it's just really a lot of random shapes. So that's kind of what I have going on here. Around back, it's a little bit more simple. There's like some vents, so I incorporated some grill tiles up top, and then there's a little bit of depth in here. You can see it kind of goes into the side of the turbo laser, so I like that. I don't know, it looks kind of cool. This side is by far the one with the most detail and the most just things on it, and I'm actually quite happy with it. I don't know, it just looks really nice. There's like these, like a step ladder kind of that goes down the side of it, so that's kind of a cool in-canon addition. I'm thinking maybe what I'll do is add like a fake kind of top hatch for it, because I'm guessing if there's these handles, then like that's supposed to allow you to access the top for like maintenance or something. So that would actually probably be a really cool addition to this. But overall, this is the turbo laser. I'll continue working on it. I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made, and my goal is to really actually start building this in physical bricks sometime this week. One of the other things I'm going to have to ensure that I do is make the top half be able to rotate. So that'll, I guess, present a slight challenge because the top half is going to be so big and heavy, but I am definitely excited for that because I think it'll be really cool having like the top parts with the guns on it kind of not like just perfectly straight, but turned slightly, adds a little bit more, I don't know, dynamicness, is that even a word, to the MOC? But yeah, that's going to finish up the discussion on the turbo laser. Let's go ahead and go to the outro of the video. And that's going to finish up the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out the Starkiller base progress this week. Definitely let me know in the comment section below, do you think it was worth it for me to tear down half of both of those walls for the details that I'm adding in? I personally definitely think it is. I think the design I came up with for those two sections that kind of protrude out from the walls are going to add a lot to it in terms of detail. And for me, just as someone who is really passionate about this MOC and really wants to make this MOC as best as it can possibly be, I'm really happy that I, one, noticed it in the first place, and two, actually decided to go ahead and add those details, because I feel like they will ultimately add a lot to the mod. In terms of moving forward throughout the week, I showed you guys a bit of the turret. My goal is to have the LED file complete and to potentially actually start building it. I really have no doubt that I will be able to start building it, but getting orders is going to be the tricky part. If you didn't know, we've been having some pretty bad storms here in the area, like the Houston area of Texas, and a lot of the mail has actually been on hold for that reason. Like a few packages I was expecting to get in this week are not here. They're just sitting at some like mail place locally in Houston because basically one of the big mail plants had some sort of like flood issue, or like I think the roof actually collapsed on it. So hopefully everyone was safe in that. But what that means in the context of this build series is I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get some parts in anytime soon. I did put it in order to get more just various slopes for the rock work, so you guys could potentially see that this week. But like I said, it'll ultimately depend on whether or not mail actually starts coming in anytime soon. So fingers crossed, hopefully that happens. If not, I have plenty of other stuff I can work on. I still have the whole other side of the wall to do for that big protrusion, as well as just building the walls back up. So now that I think about it, I actually need to do those things before I even think about doing rock work. So lots of fun to be had with the MOC coming up soon. So that's really all I got for you guys this week. Like I always say, if you like what I do, go ahead, support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.